Hey everyone, it's Ryan with Spiceworks. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Today we have another Spiceworks Partner Webinar. This time it's brought to you by SpectorSoft. 3 Ds of incident response, protect your company from insider threats. A few things I hope everybody checks out. There is the ability to ask our panelists questions. Please do so. I know they're excited to field them. Those questions will be addressed at the end. So they will be held on to. And another thing to remember is that you will get the recording in about a week in an email. So if you miss anything, it's okay, and you'll get the chance to show that to your friends. And the final thing, and this is really cool, is SpectorSoft has been kind enough to provide a prize, and that is a GoPro. So one attendee is going to get that prize. We are going to announce that attendee at the end, so stay tuned. And now I will introduce our presenters. We have Rob Williams, Chief Marketing Officer, and Stephen Boris, Senior Sales Engineer, and they're going to be joined by their colleague, Ezra Charm, and he's going to help out with the Q&A at the end. And Rob's going to get us started, so whenever you're ready.
All right, great. Thanks, Ryan. All right, so good afternoon, everyone, or morning or evening, depending on where you are. Thanks for joining us today. For those of you who aren't familiar with SpectorSoft, we provide solutions that allow organizations to monitor corporate-owned computers and networks. We've been around for about 15 years, about 40,000 corporate customers in over 113 countries. So we've been around the block a little bit. Today we're going to talk about a process that we like to call the 3 Ds of incident response, and we'll just get right into it. So SAM's Institute out there, they define incident response as an organized approach to addressing and managing the aftermath of a security breach or attack. They go into sort of the 6 steps that they include in this process, which are preparation, which kind of has to deal with education and training, policies and procedures. The identification part of it is around whether or not it actually is a breach or attack. You know, make sure you're not getting some sort of false positive. Containment, of course, which is stopping whatever the breach or attack is, and then determining the scope. Obviously, eradication is eliminating the problem, and recovery or remediation, and then lessons learned. You analyze what happened, figure out how to improve it, and avoid a recurrence. On our side of things, we kind of boiled it down to what we consider a 3-step process, sort of a cyclical process of deter, detect, and detail. It's an ongoing process that as you go through each one of the steps, continues to improve the next. More than likely, all of you on the call already have some sort of perimeter defense going on, at bare minimum firewall. We focus on defending from those that are already inside the perimeter, what we like to call insider threats. So insider threats are basically, either employees or vendors or somebody that you've given authorized access, and they end up using that access in an unauthorized way. It's tough because these are people you've already given the keys to. You've entrusted them with your data or security systems or some sort of form of access, and but it's very important that we keep a keen eye on them as well, as we continue to see almost daily in the news more and more incidents happening. Examples of insider threat: you've got fraud, IP theft, obviously data leaks. Privileged users is a big one out there now with the whole Snowden case going around. Non-compliance, inappropriate behavior, and productivity loss. Now, many of these may be end up being inadvertent issues that arise. There's kind of a little bit of 3 different categories: inadvertent, mischievous, and malicious. Depending on, did somebody do it accidentally, and that can be handled with just proper training or understanding of acceptable use policies. Malicious and mischievous are the ones that you really want to focus on, because those tend to have the greater impact on the company, especially from a financial standpoint. Some of the industries that are most at risk, banking, financial services, obviously, with money involved, they're prime targets for fraud. And, government, you get into, data leaks, information, healthcare and manufacturing, same thing, healthcare, especially on the data side of things, people trying to do, mine data and use that improperly. And manufacturing services, you start getting into IP theft, sending important information to competitors or selling. Just some stats out there, 2.9 trillion in annual global losses due to employee theft and fraud. Pretty staggering numbers. There's some anecdotes on here about how that money could be much better used. But it's definitely a hit to the bottom line. Just in the U.S. alone, about $40 billion is attributed to employee theft and fraud. So we're talking about, good amount of money that could be saved by these organizations and put to better use. So let's talk about the first step, deter. Definitions of deter, discouraging from acting or proceeding, typically by instilling fear of the consequences. That might be a little bit of a harsher definition of it. More importantly, it's the act of making someone decide not to do something. So we want to put up some roadblocks that make people, think twice before they even go down a road of attempting to do anything. We consider this first line of defense. And that's kind of, you're starting with education and training. You have a clear, acceptable use policy that you give to employees and keep updated, make sure that they get it, either upon hiring or as soon as you adopt one if you don't already have one. And then we also recommend that you state that you have the right and the means to monitor computer and network activity so that they're fully aware that that's going on. When we're talking about insider threat, only about 10% of the employee population, accounts for most of the incidents that happen out there. The problem is we just don't know which 10% are the ones that, could pose the risk. Interesting stat or note from the sentencing project, they came out saying that certainty of punishment was much more a concern than the severity of punishment, which kind of leads back to our deterrence message. They're definitely more concerned about whether or not they will get caught as opposed to, if they think they can get off, it doesn't matter what the severity of the punishment is. So we want to make sure that they feel like, they will be caught. And that's as simple as you can think about, security cameras in a parking garage or, in a store or whichever. People are very aware that those are there, and they're much less likely to do anything if they know that, there's an eye in the sky watching. You can also think about the TSA in airports. A lot of people showing a big force of security there. They have the scanners, and there's a lot of things there that make you feel like, yeah, it's going to be difficult to get through this. You've seen the police cars on the side of the road that make everyone slow down, even though there may not be even a police officer in there. Or even just home alarm signs or guard dog signs that are on your home itself, and you may not have either one. The next aspect is detect or detection. You're still going to have some people that will attempt to bypass the deterrent methods that you put out there and test to see if the measures are real, if they do exist. And you want to make sure that you detect these as soon as possible. So over the years, corporations are continuing to spend more and more on defense efforts and security measures. They continue to increase every year. But as we see, also each year, the the number of incidents just in, say, confidential information leaks continue to rise as well. So we're throwing more money at it, but it doesn't seem to be cutting down on the number of reported incidents out there. So reported incidents is a big part of it also, because surveys are showing that 75% of the crimes that do happen out there even go unnoticed. So you may not even be catching everything. So from a detection standpoint, you want to make sure that your security measures are delivering timely alerts. You know, in our aspect, we use them based on keywords. We baseline activity so that you can start looking for anomalies. Dashboards that display this data and give you much better analytics and the ability to see what's going on in your organization and pick out the things that aren't looking right, so you can take a closer look. There's even studies out there where we're talking about how people, from a linguistic standpoint, people start changing the tone of their communication when they start, you know, engaging in something that's either illegal or against policy. So you can start looking for that and putting in some more intelligent analytics and looking around for that, which starts to get into almost a predictive model. And that's kind of where the industry's heading and where we're looking to start getting to, so that we can, you know, just get closer and closer up the chain to almost make it, you know, catch it before it happens. So once you've detected a problem out there, you want to, you know, get to the meat and potatoes of it, which is the detail, you know, and that's the data or the proof or the evidence, if you will. What this information will give you, and when we get to the demo in a little while, you'll get to see exactly how we provide it. But you want to be able to get to find out exactly what happened, to what extent, who was involved, and even if you can find out why. There's a lot of things out there where, you know, some of these breaches that have happened in the past, they find out that it happened from a third party, either a customer of theirs has come and told them that this has happened. You know, they try and track it down, but they can't even get to the scope of it. So they don't even know how far and wide the breach may have been. And finding out if there were any accomplices or who they were speaking to, and even finding out why. We have a little story that we tell sometimes about a sales employee who will all of a sudden use a Gmail account to send out all of the customer or client list files to another Gmail account that's, you know, that's unrecognized. And, you know, an incident response team will start, you know, being very concerned about that as they see some of their, you know, information going out the door that way. With the level of detail that we provide, you can go back and look and see that this person's manager sent them, you know, a message right before that where they were out on a client call, their machine crashed, the only thing they could do was access somebody else's machine and get to a Gmail account, and they asked them to send it. So it can not only be used to, you know, catch people, but also, you know, prove that they didn't do anything wrong. Many companies have to do investigations all the time on an individual base. So the more detailed the information, obviously, the better. You want to make sure you have a very, very accurate information. You know, you get to the result quicker, and, you know, get to that end state, and, you know, conclude whatever the investigation or whatever the you know, the issue that's going on. You know, some of the things out there, if it was around inappropriate behavior or something like that, if somebody's you know, hit the company with a wrongful termination suit, you know, that can cost you up to, you know, $250,000 or more. If you have the information right at hand that you can show clear proof, then that tends to shut those down pretty quickly. You know, the HR will tell you all the time that you need to document all of this stuff, and this is just a great way to document, you know, and have that data saved and ready to go if the need arises. Some of the things you may be looking for, you want to confirm or deny something, you know, the who did what, kind of, you know, we've talked about before. You can get into productivity and efficiency where you can, see what people are doing, see if there's ways to improve that, how you can train them better to be more productive. If you're putting in a new policy or, say, a new piece of software that everyone needs to use, and you need to compare, see how people are using it, and if it is working for the company as a whole, and how you need to apply further training. Obviously, security, compliance is becoming more and more as, with healthcare and financial institutions, they need to show proper compliance from a security standpoint. This fits right into play with that. And, general policies that your company may want to have in place. You can kind of think about it, as your golf swing coach. They record your swing, look for the flaws, make corrections, and just continue to do, that over and over again. So you can get that visual, tangible evidence rather than only having to rely on hearsay or conjecture, or guessing. You can have the actual proof right in front of you. That leads us right back into Deter again. And this is where we take what we've learned throughout the process to put into place to shore up the walls a little bit better and make sure that if something does happen, we can put that into place in policy. And you get the feedback loop to make sure that you're not missing anything, improve your security, update training policies, and make the corrections necessary. So SpectorSoft offers some good data as far as this is concerned. This entire piece is wrapped in how our products are used. We can provide the user activity or network activity and monitor those, and you can see everything that's going on. Whether it's from all the way down to keystrokes and key logging, but you get in to see what people are chatting about, and what they're searching for online. Where are your documents going? How are they being transferred? Are they ending up on a thumb drive somewhere? Are they being transferred through some sort of cloud storage? Network usages, a little bit of everything. Pretty much everything that's going on the computer is what we're going to be able to see and run detection through, and be able to run alerts and see the detail on, so you can look back at it, make sure there isn't anything improper happening. Our suite of products, we have a couple different flavors of it. Our Spectre 360 and Spectre 360 Recon. It depends on the size of organization and who's involved with the operation of it, and how much data you want to collect. Our Spectre 360 version is our full detail model, able to see everything. You're able to put a focus on each one and get right into seeing everything that happened on each endpoint that you have out there under management. The Recon is a little bit different. You're still collecting about 30 days worth of data on each machine. It's stored locally, and it's more of an insurance policy. If an alert goes off or you need to go back and look at something, you've got that data saved. Our C&E product is a little bit more of investigation. You need to conduct a specific investigation on maybe a specific person or group, and so you can point that right at them. It's also a good version for more SMB companies that maybe don't have a full IT department, and don't have the ability to implement a SQL database and so forth. That's all kind of wrapped in. It's a little bit easier to get started with. So from here, I think we'll get over to Steve and have him start running a demo for us and show you some of the great features of the product.
Thanks, Rob.
Let me change that over to you. There you go.
Okay, I'm just going to give it a second here to let it catch up for everyone. Again, I want to thank everyone for joining the webinar here today, and hopefully everyone is able to see my screen. What I have displayed here is one of the two user interfaces that I'm going to walk through and show you how they work. The first one that I have displayed here is our Spectre Control Center. And this is actually the admin console that is used to configure exactly what you want to record, our database maintenance and backups, as well as creating those alerts that Rob had mentioned earlier. What I have open right now is one of our recording profiles, and these recording profiles you can think of as like blueprint settings of what needs to be recorded based off of groups of computers. You could have it, certain locations recording different things versus, maybe higher risk employees that put in their 2 weeks notice versus employees that come on board and going through a probation period. And now I've opened one of them, and what I'm on right now is the record tab, and here's where the detection phase or the recorder settings are configured. And as a default, everything is enabled, and this kind of follows that slide 26 to where we can show you screen snapshots. So we're essentially having that eye in the sky, taking a snapshot of what's on your user's monitors. That's configurable from 1 second all the way up to 900, and capturing up to 8 monitors at once. So you get a full picture, video style recording where you can replay, fast forward, pause, and even export out those screenshots as videos. The next one down here I want to talk about is the chat and IM. So a lot of data leakage now happens through various ways, such as cloud storage, USB drives, but a big one overmissed is chat and IM. I mean, you can copy and paste information into a chat, or if you have Skype, you could transfer files back and forth through that without you even knowing. So with the chat and IM feature, we record both sides of the chat. So you'll see your end user as well as the external user and what transpired during that chat. Your websites visited, this would fall under productivity concerns as well as applications. We record every website that a user goes to, and we utilize a unique time metric not seen in like firewall logs, such as active time. So we can pinpoint exactly how long someone was active, typing, scrolling, clicking within a website, how long it was in focus, so if they had multiple tabs open, which tab was in focus, or if it was minimized, and then how long it was open before it was closed. So nowadays with multiple monitors, you could open your Outlook, scroll it over to the second monitor, but it would be active in your web browser while Outlook's just sitting over there doing nothing. Email activity records not only internal email, such as going through Exchange servers or Lotus Notes, but the big one, again, following data leakage, happens through webmail. And I think Rob kind of mentioned this with Gmail. What's to stop someone, unless you're blocking the website, from blind carbon copying themselves for an internal sensitive document going around and then blind carbon copying a Gmail or webmail account? With us being able to record those sent and received emails, we have records of those. Even if they delete them, we have copies of them. That also goes down to email attachments too. We do have the ability to record those attachments, showing you the contents of that attachment as well as the document name. Your file transfers, this would kind of follow information such as documents or programs going in and out of the network through certain protocols like FTP sites. BitTorrent sharing programs nowadays are out there. So we can record any files going in and out of there and what protocol it was on. Keystrokes type, this is a keylogger. Plain and simple, straight up keylogger. Captures every key on the keyboard. So even the keys that are not viewed when you press them, like backspace, delete key, arrow keys. If someone was to type a sentence, delete over, or take a document name, for instance, delete it and rename it to something else. In our raw format, we'll be able to show you those keys and what was deleted and what was typed afterwards. One more thing here with the keystrokes, because of client privacy, being it's a keylogger does capture credentials, so we do give you the option to exclude that with this feature here. So I did want to point that out because it always comes up. Program activity, and this is going to monitor all the applications that a user is active in throughout the day. Again, if it was minimized, that's focus, and then how long it was open before it's closed. So this would fall under the productivity, again, with websites. User activity, this is a virtual time card essentially. So within a graph, you can see what user was logged into what machine, when you were logged in and active, actually using keyboard and mouse, logged in and inactive, Or more importantly, if you're looking at remote users, you want to know if they're really active or working after hours or doing things they shouldn't have been, or if they have access into your internal network, are they accessing machines after hours that you otherwise wouldn't be able to detect through a remote session. Document tracking, probably the most powerful feature of these recorder settings. This is going to show data in motion. So following a laptop user, for instance, once they have sensitive data on a laptop, we record everything they do off the network too. So when they detach that laptop, we're capturing it all. And we're storing in an encrypted randomly generated folder. But once that data is at rest on that machine, what's to stop them from plugging in a USB drive and copying that information over, or if they were on the network, deleting files before they left from network drives, or accessing cloud storage, whether it's the client or the web-based portal, and uploading those files. So we record all that, but we also can record printed documents. So if they were to plug in a personal printer, print out large documents, you know, and then walk those out of the building, we can show you the document name, how many pages it was, who did it, from what computer, and the printer they printed to, as well as anything burned to a CD or DVD. And then lastly is the network activity. And this is strictly just bandwidth consumption out to the internet. So you can see what users are consuming your internet bandwidth, as well as applications. So going to the torrent programs, or individual streaming audio or video, or uploading or downloading large applications, you'll actually see that with network activity. So again, this is going to fall into the detect features, right? So you can turn these on and off at will if you don't want to record them. It's very simple. Even after a recorder is deployed, you make adjustments to these, it updates. So let's go over to some deterrent features. I'm going to go over here to general options. And those of you familiar with Spectre 360 or CNE, they record exactly the same thing, and they record in a stealth mode as a default. And that's this setting here. So in the stealth mode, it's not detected by the user. Now, there could be the deterrent mode. And Rob, if you want to pitch in anything on this too to let them know, once that recorder's in visible mode, you know, they know something's on there recording their activities.
Yeah, we have a lot of different levels. We have a lot of different levels of settings that you can turn on and off and make it either more or less visible to the person that may be monitored. And that goes right into, like what Steve said, with the deterrent factor. So the more visible it is, whether you have you know, an icon in the tray or a logon warning, or if you're blocking specific websites and you have an alert pop up for that, which is showing on the screen right there, or that's the logon warning, sorry. And then there's other sorts of pop-up violation warnings. You know, if it goes against something in policy, you can fire those off. There's a lot of different ways to level the deterrence and how obvious and visible you want to make it.
Okay, thanks, Rob. All right, so that really is kind of the guts and the nuts and bolts of what it's capable of recording for you. Now I want to just drop down here to our types of alerts. There is a lot, you know, taking place here with the recorder capturing all this data. You're not going to have time sometimes to actually open our console, review the data. So instead, you have the option to receive an email alert, or you can review the alerts in our dashboard, and that's the next console. So we've canned quite a few alerts right out of the box called event alerts. So if there's concerns about copying files to removable media, you can turn this one on. You could specify who gets the alert, so you can add as many alert operators and even include details. And these can get extremely granular. They do use Boolean logic statements. So for instance, this one is looking at document tracking. The activity that contains a create or a delete could be a rename or an edit. And the device contains CD-ROM, cloud, network, and removable. So you can continue on adding here. So you can have it look for a particular document name or a group of documents, totally up to you. They're fully customizable, and you can even decipher who you want these to run against. Sometimes you don't want to run this against everyone you're monitoring, so you could either do it by particular groups, like maybe I want to monitor the sales group, and maybe these two individuals. So now I can get alerted if any files are moved to those type of devices, and those are the users it's going to run against.
And this is where you can kind of point at more privileged users that may have different access to different levels of types of information. The granularity that we offer from who you can target with the product, and as well as who you can involve in receiving alerts and dealing with the remediation. If something has to do with one of your events or alerts has to do with fraud, you may want to have that just go directly to somebody who's in charge in finance and make sure that they're aware and they can look into it. If it's something around inappropriate behavior or language or harassment or things like that, you can have that directly go to HR, so that it doesn't always have to be the guy in IT worried about making some sort of decision on do I need to escalate this and have to deal with all of the portions of it.
Okay. All right. So those are the event alerts. Now, Rob did mention a little bit about our Spectre 360 Recon. Now, those strictly run against alerts. And those alerts are actually processed from these keyword groups that are fully customizable. You could actually create your own from scratch, import words and groups of words, but each one of these contain hundreds of words. And the recons will actually process from these groups or whatever groups you turn on. Now, there are two types of ways to receive a recon alert. One is via email. So when you turn on the recon, you can opt to have this sent out via email to whatever operators, such as HR or IT or your security staff, but also it can display a pop-up message to the end user. So if the word backdating was picked up, or how to hack a password, for instance, it would display a pop-up message on the end user's machine down here stating you violated the company policy. Then they could click on it and see exactly what word was picked up, whether it was in an application or chat or email or so forth. Specify who the alerts are going to run against. The operators are going to be the managers who receive the alerts. And then the keywords themselves. So what groups do you want to process from? When you edit this, you just select your groups here. We'll process from those keywords. Or you can individually type those in too. So once the alert is picked up, now it's up to you. What do you want to do with it? So do you want to unlock it to where you can view the data? Because as Rob mentioned earlier, it records in a 30-day rotating style recording mode. So it's keeping the data locally on that machine, never pushing it, and rolling over on day 31 it overwrites day 1. So it's passive recording, kind of like a black box on an airplane. You don't pull it out unless it crashes. Once it crashes, you switch the recording mode from recon to detail, and it'll give you that 30-day window that normally you would miss if you hadn't deployed a recorder. So you got that 30 days you can go back to and review that data, see what triggered that alert. And if you feel like, it's something, you need to take action, you can continue monitoring from there on or switch it back to recon mode.
The good thing about the recon model also is it addresses some of the concerns that people have around employee privacy. If you want to have this insurance policy in place and you don't want your employees to feel like somebody's watching every single thing they do on their machines at all times, this is a good version for that. Then it only acts on something that may be a potential problem, and they don't have to be concerned that someone's sitting there watching the entire time.
All right, thanks, Rob. Okay, so that leads me to the end of the control center, the admin console. So once you have all this data collected, we're going to utilize the dashboard to actually go back and review this data. So that's where I'm going to go to next. So here's our dashboard. Now, one note about this, it can be deployed out to specific individuals, groups of individuals, and you can even scrutinize and reduce the amount of access rights that a manager may have. So you can restrict them from viewing certain data, as well as certain aspects of the dashboard. You can remove these buttons, you can customize charts for them and apply that to their logins. But what you could do is distribute this out to whoever needs to view the data. That way, taking the burden off IT once more, or now you can just give it to HR. HR can look at the activity they care about and run whatever reports they want without having to go strictly to IT to run all this for them. Now, we give you a couple different avenues of viewing the data here in the dashboard. And the first one I have highlighted is our quick view charts and panels. One note with this, there's over 100 CAN charts that come with the product, so you don't have to set up what you're seeing here today. You can modify all the defaults or create your own from scratch. Also with the quick view charts, it gives you a 30,000-foot view across everyone that you're monitoring. So you find some areas of interest, and that's where you're going to look at the quick view panels here in the upper left. So if it's productivity that's a concern, you would click on that panel, and all of these charts are geared to productivity. If it's websites and you want to look at that, you can click on this panel, and again, all of these are geared to websites. But I'm going to focus today on alerts. So once you get an alert, now you want to unlock the data, go see what transpired. So here in the keyword alert section, we have the top 10 keywords that were picked up and the top users violating those keywords. Here on the left-hand side are the actual keywords that were detected. And with these quick view charts, again, you just find the line item that you want to drill into and just click on it. And I'm going to go into write-off here. Here's our navigation window showing all the alerts. And again, I can click on them and it would filter out everything else and just show me that particular alert. A summary, which is a quick breakdown showing you how many events were picked up in write-off and where it found it in keystrokes. All the data is laid out exactly the same, so you get the exact recorded date and time this occurred, on what machine that the user was logged into. Very important if you have users that have access to multiple machines. You want to know where it took place, whether it's in their local machine or they log into a terminal server or Citrix server. We combine all the data under their username so you can see exactly the machine they were logged into, who your user was, the program that was used to create the action, where it found the keyword was in keystrokes in this case. If I expand this a little bit, you can see exactly what was picked up. So I'm going to highlight this one. You can highlight any one of them, and then click View Snapshots. Now that opens the snapshot married to that line item. And here in the upper left is our DVR-Style Remote, where you can rewind, so I can go back one slide at a time, or I can press the play button, or I can fast forward. So I'm going to press play, and you can see them typing the email right there. So the snapshots are giving you that powerful video playback, kind of like a security camera in a convenience store. Now, this would definitely be something you would want to save, and we give you a couple options of doing that. First would be to watermark the screen. And when you watermark the screen, it's going to give you the domain or the work group, the user that was logged in, the machine they were logged into, and a date and time stamp. Now you have the ability to save that current image that we're looking at right now, or a range. The range would be from the start of the questionable activity to the end of it. So someone plugging in a flash drive, copying sensitive data, and then ejecting that. That would be a range. And then you can save that as JPEG or a bitmap, so you can import those into third-party reporting tools, or as an AVI video that will compile the snapshots as a video. And both the video and the still images, this is going to be watermarked in there. So now you can just provide that over to your HR or legal team or anyone that doesn't have access to 360. So that's kind of how the snapshots work with the quick view charts. Now, one other thing I want to show you here is the search tool. You know, with all this data, sometimes you need to find something quickly, and you don't want to have to sit back and watch 5 hours worth of recordings, you know, to try to find a particular piece of activity. Maybe it's a keyword, maybe it's a document that was emailed or plugged into a flash drive somewhere. So with this search tool, it's going to scour through the data that's stored in our SQL database. You can specify a date range, so you can narrow your search. You could specify a particular machine that the user logged into or a group of them. Or you can specify a particular user or group of users. So that way it just filters out everyone else except for who you're looking for. Here you can string together multiple search phrases. You can put in quotes around it. But I'm going to look for the phrase special fees. And I'm going to also include partial matches. And then I'm going to specify what do I want to search within. So right now I have email selected, but I can narrow my focus if I just want to look for the attachment name. Next there was an attachment. But I have keystrokes and emails selected. I'm just going to click search. And that's literally going to pull this data out of that database and present it to me, highlighting the word. Right there it is. Again, date and time. the machine, who the user was, the activity was an email and keystroke, and that's where it found it. One more note with that database, it links all the data together. So where we saw him typing the email earlier through the snapshots, I can go directly to the snapshot right from here. And there it is. So that's the beauty of the database, linking all that data together, giving you the high-level charts, allowing you to search through the data and comb and literally find the needle in a haystack. But one last feature I want to show you here is our User Explorer. This is kind of what you're going to see if you go with Spector C&E, which is the investigator portion. 360 is going to give you this dashboard, which gives you those quick view charts, the database, the search tool. C&E, you're going to drill in to the user one by one. Really, it's meant for spot investigations. So 360 is called the User Explorer, and you would just double-click a user, and you get presented with a criteria where you can narrow your searches once more. When you log in, when it opens it, you have everything that we record. So these are the settings at the very beginning that I was showing you. So it's essentially everything we record, and just whatever you need to focus on, that's going to be what you click on. So we can see with this person, for instance, we have a lot of company lists that were actually, looks like they were copied to Dropbox. So you can see there's Dropbox right there. So that's how quick you can investigate data as we collect it. Going back to, the detect, and then now showing you the detail. So Rob, is there anything you would like to add?
No, that's pretty good information there, and showing it. We've got a bunch of questions coming in also that we can answer that'll kind of fill in a few more spots that we may have missed.
Okay.
Rob, do you want me to read off the questions for you guys? Or?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. This first one is about, I think it's referring to that slide we had where we talked about the number of employee-related crimes that are going unnoticed. And I just want to mention again, if there are any other questions, I see a bunch coming in still, feel free to pop them into that GoToWebinar chat, and we'll address them all. So how do we really know how many employee crimes are going undetected? Is that a conservative number?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and part of this is, we like to say we don't know what we don't know. So unless you're implementing some type of solution like this, you don't know how many crimes are going on in your organization, and until you do. So this is one of the best ways to make sure that you are finding and seeing as many or all as possible.
Okay. And what about the fine line between data protection and excessive employee monitoring? And I think that we have some great answers to this, including Spector 360 Recon, but I'll let you guys address that.
Yeah, I think we mentioned during the demo that Recon allows you some of that to address some of those concerns. In just Spector 360 alone, and actually I think in all of our products, we have the ability to turn off other things that may infringe on some privacy that people are concerned about. Your corporation or your company may allow people to, it's a busy world, and they may not have a problem with employees going and doing some online banking or something like that during work time. And we have the ability to shut off the capture mode of what's going on with certain, banking websites. We can turn off the ability to capture passwords related to those. Steve's showing on the screen right now. You can put in those bank sites. So you just give that, a little bit of give some ease to your employees so that they feel like you're not watching everything, including what's personal. You're only concerned about protecting the company, its employees, and the bottom line in the long run. So.
This next question kind of leads right into those points, and that's how does this compare, our products compare to what the NSA uses? And you know, I think one of the biggest things is our concern with individuals' right to privacy, and you know, not using it maybe just like a blanket recording tool, having that granular control. But maybe you can talk to that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the right point. First of all, you know, what we're doing is the solution we're providing to companies is a legal way, you know, to monitor and protect their, you know, monitor their assets basically, and protect their company. You know, I think what the NSA is doing is a little bit different, and people will have their own views on that. But you know, having that granularity to find a balance between, you know, protecting the privacy and protecting the company is an important facet. And the amount of settings and features that we provide, I think that does that real well.
Yeah, and if I can expand on that just a tiny bit, I just want to mention we have published documentation on acceptable use policies, informing employees that, you know, that they're using company-issued devices as opposed to the NSA, which was, you know, recording on devices or activity that was not even filtered through them at all. So, you know, just informing employees, making them aware that you reserve the right to monitor, having them agree to an acceptable use policy. These are the things that are acceptable to do on company-issued devices is another thing to look at. And after the webinar and our follow-up email to you guys, we'll share that information out as well. This next question is, can the tracking feature be scanning for specific words or phrases? And I think Steve touched on that just for a minute with the global search. But we also have specific keyword alerts and the ability to build out your own keyword lists. But I'll let Steve or Rob talk to that.
Yes, so certainly you can certainly create as many keyword groups as you want and process from those keyword groups. But you could also create, you know, just individual words. Maybe you don't want to have to create a group, but you want to look like for a specific phrase or a document that was moved either through a chat or an email, or that phrase that was typed in a keystroke or a chat here. So this would trigger an alert to happen, but also trip the snapshots to record more frequently, giving you more detail on what triggered the alert. But you would receive these alerts via real-time email. But yeah, all the alerts are fully customizable.
And this is another thing that I'd like to mention is that it's, you know, once the data is recorded, it's there. So, you know, even if a keyword's not important to you yet and only becomes important to you as an incident develops, you can still go and search through the entire data set and find all the instances of that keyword or phrase. So. Are the recordings on the PC encrypted, or can anyone view them if they know where to look? I think this is specific to Recon, where we're storing that data locally.
Okay, so that during that recording phase, it's a randomly generated folder that is encrypted. We use proprietary encryption method as well as some known encryption methods. So while it's on there and it's recording that 30-day rotating 30 days, it is encrypting that. And even during transmission, if you opt to unlock the data, then during transmission is also encrypted. It's just pushing to the Spectre server.
Sure. This is a comment about one of the emails that people really would send an email like that from their corporate email. And, you know, just working at SpectorSoft for a couple of years now, you know, the things we've uncovered, and I'm sure Steve can speak to this quite a bit, you know, are pretty remarkable. So, yes, that happens. Steve, if you have a further comment, otherwise we'll just move on that one.
No, I've seen so much. There's too much to even present on that.
How would this work on a multi-user environment like Citrix or Terminal Server?
So we fully support that. It's just a different licensing model that you would get. But you would get a license for either the Citrix or Terminal Server. You would just add the profile here, deploy the recorder just like you would a regular workstation. Depending on how that server is set up, though, we do have the ability to record an alternative shell support. What that is fully published applications. Otherwise, as a default, it records the whole desktop.
I'm just going to add a little question onto that. What about what about remote employees? Because that seems to be a common concern. So employees that are not working within your network but are working on company-issued devices.
Yeah, that's happening quite a bit now, remote workers. So the recorder can push in a couple different methods. So one over VPN. So I kind of mentioned when you disconnect that laptop, it records locally because it can't push the data, which it does every 4 minutes by default. So when it's off the network, if the user was to connect to the VPN back to corporate, it would attempt to try to push over that back to the Spectre server. Or here in our server section, you can actually put in your static public IP address here and then do some port forwarding in your firewall, and all this is documented in our help docs, and then have that forward over the internet back to your main location and push into the server. Or if they're off the network, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And if none of that happens, once the computer comes back into the network, if it didn't have the opportunity to push over the internet, it's going to do it once it's connected to the LAN. And these are the thresholds on how long you opt to have that data record locally until it starts to overwrite the oldest data first.
I love this next question. It's one word. It's just pricing.
That's a great question. Unfortunately, I don't have the pricing.
I can tell you that the recon portion, which is that insurance policy, starts at $20 per user and scales down from there as you increase users.
Yeah, I saw another question on there about nonprofit pricing. We do have nonprofit and government pricing, special pricing, I should say.
Yep. Can you keep the data for more than 30 days, or is 30 days the magic number? And I think you were just showing that as it relates to Spectre 360 pushing data. So I think we have to make the distinction here between recon and the full detail mode.
Right.
Right. So in recon mode, it's only 30 days. In detail mode, yes, you can adjust these settings. You can increase or decrease them, even adjust them into gigabytes. So you could have it stored for more than 30 days and more than 500 megabytes. So yeah, totally adjustable in detail mode only. Recon, only 30 days.
And 30 days is our magic number in recon. It's based on a lot of research we did into, you know, when is an event most likely to happen as it relates to individual employees, and 30 days was the number we came up with. So, can the system block or stop things from happening? I don't think you went into our blocking features at all.
No, I didn't touch on that. The only type of blocking that we have in the product is websites. So we can block either by URLs or by categories with Spectre 360. Spectre CME is only by URL only. So you can block websites, individuals from chat and IM program, or down to port levels, going out to the internet. And these are the ports, the defaults. You can customize these or create your own. Over here, in websites visited, these are the categories that are included with Spectre 360. So these are our defaults. You can create your own from scratch, because there are going to be some websites that may not fall under our categories, like your competitor websites, for instance. So you can create a category, drop those URLs in there, and then block. And the blocking can take place via a time frame, and you can have an allow or block rule, but based off a user or group of users.
So are users able to delete the application or the client recorder from their workstation if they are tech savvy?
No, so the recorder is actually working at the kernel level, and when it's in stealth mode, it literally can't find it. It's not an add and remove programs. So even if the user was able to detect it, it is a persistent elevated service that runs that's masked to look like a Windows service. So even if they're local admins to their machines and they knew what that service was, they can't just stop it. The only real way to stop the recorder is to either uninstall it or issue a temporary stop recording, which I'm going to show you right now. So for instance, this machine is recording right now. The only way to stop it is to right-click and select Stop Recording or uninstall it altogether.
Okay. So there's another question here about, given all the processing required to attain all the data and everything like that, how much bandwidth is consumed, and how does this affect the end user and the network as a whole?
That's a great question. That one comes up quite a bit. It looks like we are recording a lot, and we are. But the beauty of how we capture this data is the only thing that's really consuming the most disk space is the screen snapshots. And those are set to 30 seconds and 4-bit grayscale as a default. But with everything turned on, all the recorder settings we went over, it's roughly 7 to 10 megabytes a day per user, and that's based off of an 8-hour work shift. So them working in continuous 8 hours. And then what we do is we chop that 8 hours up into 4-minute intervals. So we record a 4-minute cache, and we push it off the client over to the server. 4 minutes more pushes that. And it continues doing that throughout the day when there's activity. When there is no activity, the recorder automatically pauses, so it's fully automatic. So it's roughly 7 to 10 meg a day with the default settings.
Awesome, and I can say that you know, from being you know, using a machine that's recorded, I have never noticed any degradation of performance at all. This is a mature product, been on the market for quite a long time, and it's something our engineers are very, very good at. So, you know, that's top of mind all the time. The next question is, it was mentioned that we use a SQL database in Spectre 360 to store the data. Is this a free version, or will we need to purchase a full version of SQL?
So SQL is included. It's SQL Server 2008, R2 64-bit. So when you download Spectre 360 setup file, it's included in that setup file. So it's just one exe that runs through the whole install practically by itself, thus installing the database during the installation of the backend components. So yeah, it is included. And the version that comes with anything below 1,000 seats is our Express Edition, which has dynamic databases. So the databases automatically grow when needed, but it gives you a faster opportunity to archive a database much sooner than a larger full SQL database, like a 25 gig. So once you archive it, then you can move that database off the server for off-site permanent storage. If you need it 5 years from now, you can restore that archive by just right-clicking in the database here and selecting Archive Restore. Now you have the data viewable.
Sure, and that kind of, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And one more thing, the reason why we include the database is, one, all the data is stored in there, but we're also performing our own backups of the data, which drops here in the archives, but the ability for the software to automatically prune the data, because you know, this space came up a little while ago. What's to say you don't want to delete the data, right? And have 360 automatically do it for you. So with the space management feature here, you can have it automatically delete records, even the backup sets, based off this utility.
So that, you know, it kind of, what's that?
I was going to say, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So it leads into the next question, which is possible database size. If it's a central database, it must get huge. And, you know, you touched on built-in archiving, backing up, deleting, stuff like that, other database jobs that you can do. And then the other thing that I just want you to touch on is you know, we mentioned that the screen snapshots were the biggest burden on the database, and our ability to set those to, you know, grayscale where they're still fully viewable but are not as you know, don't take as much space. And maybe you can touch on that just for a second.
Yeah, so that's actually a good one to show, because there are going to be cases where you need to take them in color for higher risk style investigations or higher risk employees. So this is definitely a good one to show. And 4-bit grayscale is the default, but you can increase all the way to 32-bit color. But with the 4-bit grayscale, it's black and white, but still very good resolution. So it's very you know, readable. Then you can adjust your 30-second range here. You can reduce that down to every second, so it's going to take a lot more, or you can increase it up to 999. Also turning on additional triggers that you could leave it at 30 seconds, which is a pretty good number. That's the reason why we came up with that default. But you could opt to have it take a snapshot when a web page is loaded, or if a key is pressed, like print screen or delete. So these are additional triggers. So the more you enable, the more snapshots it will take, the more disk space it will consume over time.
Great. And this is just Ryan stepping in with Spiceworks. I think we are at the top of the hour, so we're going to have to wrap it up. And then I think there is a winner that we need to announce. Can someone from the SpectorSoft team do that?
Rob? That's not the winner.
Yeah, no, Rob didn't win.
Perfect.
So the winner is Tyson S., and we will reach out to you and get that GoPro shipped out to you. Congratulations, and definitely thanks for joining us today.
Great. And that is going to do it. Congrats, Tyson, and thanks, everyone, for attending, and thanks to the SpectorSoft team. You will get a link with the recording in about a week, and then I know there were a ton of questions, ton of participation. SpectorSoft will have the opportunity to follow up with you. So that'll do it, and everyone have a good afternoon.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.